She fled a toxic marriage at the last moment and entered the wrong apartment, unaware it belonged to the mafia boss who always wanted her. When their eyes meet, everything changes. Hold on, gorgeous. Hit that like if you're already hooked. Subscribe for more delicious stories. We're building a community of women who love their romance hot and their drama intense. Are you in? The wedding dress weighed 40 pounds, but the guilt weighed more. Elena Morrison stood in the bathroom of St. Catherine's Church, mascara running down her cheeks like black rivers of doubt, and did the math in her head. 23 years old. 2 years with Brett. 6 months engaged, and exactly 47 seconds until someone would knock on that door and tell her it was time to walk down the aisle toward the biggest mistake of her life. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Brett. "Where are you? People are waiting. People are waiting. Not, I'm waiting. Not, I love you. Not, I can't wait to marry you. Just, people are waiting." Like she was holding up a dental appointment. The bruise on her ribs throbbed. A parting gift from 3 nights ago when she'd suggested postponing the wedding. Brett had very strong opinions about postponement, and about her tone, and about how she'd looked at the waiter who'd brought their drinks. The man saw threats in her breathing. "Now, honey, I've made some questionable choices in my time, like trusting a man who said his ex was crazy. But Elena?" She was looking at her reflection in that church bathroom mirror and finally, seeing clearly. Sometimes it takes a white dress to realize you're about to paint your whole life the wrong color. Her hands shook as she gathered the ridiculous train of her dress. Brett's mother had insisted on the dress, of course, just like she'd insisted on the flowers, the venue, the menu, basically everything except whether Elena actually wanted to marry her controlling, manipulative son, which plot twist she didn't. The bathroom window was small. The dress was not. But Elena had been a gymnast in high school, and fear is a hell of a motivator. She climbed onto the toilet, hoisted herself up, and squeezed through that window like toothpaste from a tube. Elegant? No. Necessary? Absolutely. She hit the ground outside with all the grace of a drunk flamingo, her veil catching on the window latch and tearing free. Good riddance. She kicked off the torture devices Brett's mother had called elegant heels and ran. Bare feet on hot pavement, wedding dress hiked up to her knees, running like her life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. Behind her, she heard shouting. Brett's voice, sharp with that edge that made her stomach clench. "Elena! Elena! Get back here!" But Elena Morrison was done being summoned like a disobedient pet. She ran through the parking lot, through the side street, her breath coming in gasps, her heart hammering against her ribs, the same ribs that still ached from Brett's lesson about respect. The apartment building appeared like salvation wrapped in old brick. 423 Riverside Avenue. Rachel's building. Her best friend had given her a spare key months ago. For emergencies. Well, Rachel, Elena thought as she yanked open the entrance door. This counts. The lobby was blessedly cool, blessedly empty. Elena's reflection in the elevator mirror was a disaster. Running mascara, wild hair, a wedding dress that looked like it had fought a war and lost. She stabbed the button for the 7th floor. Rachel's apartment. Safety. A place to think, to breathe, to figure out what the hell came next. The elevator dinged. 7th floor. She stumbled out, dress dragging behind her, and pulled the key from where she'd tucked it into her bra. The only pocket a wedding dress offers a desperate woman. Apartment 7B. She shoved the key into the lock. It stuck. She jiggled it. Nothing. Come on, she whispered, her voice cracking. Behind her, the elevator dinged again. Her blood turned to ice. What if Brett had followed her? What if... The key turned. The door opened. Elena practically fell inside, slammed the door behind her, threw the deadbolt, and pressed her back against it, gasping. Safe. She was safe. The apartment was dark, quiet. The only sound was her own ragged breathing and the distant hum of water running. Rachel must be in the shower. Perfect. Elena could calm down, explain everything, maybe borrow some clothes that didn't scream runaway bride quite so loudly. She dropped her shoes. Well, she'd already lost them, but the gesture felt right, and walked toward the sound of running water, following it down a hallway that seemed different somehow. Had Rachel redecorated? The walls were darker, more masculine. There were framed photographs of people Elena didn't recognize. A cold trickle of realization started down her spine. The kitchen had been on the left in Rachel's apartment. Here it was on the right. The couch was black leather, not Rachel's floral print. And those shoes by the door? Size 12. Men's. Expensive. Oh no. Oh no, no, no. Wrong apartment, wrong floor, wrong building. Her brain scrambled to make sense of it, but the key had worked, the lock had turned, she was inside and… The bathroom door opened. Steam poured out like stage fog, and through it walked a man with a towel wrapped around his waist and absolutely nothing else. Water droplets traced paths down a chest that looked carved from marble, past abs that could make a nun reconsider her choices, to that towel that was barely hanging on, and… Their eyes met, and Elena Morrison's world tilted on its axis. Because those eyes. She knew those eyes. Dark brown, almost black, with that little gold fleck in the left one. Those eyes that had looked at her across a chain-link fence when she was 8 years old and he was 11, when he'd shared his lunch with her because she'd forgotten hers, when he'd walked her home every day for 3 years until his family moved away, and… Dom? The name came out as a whisper. Dominic Castellano. Her childhood friend who'd disappeared 15 years ago. Her first crush. The boy who'd promised to come back and never did. He stared at her wedding dress, stared at her tear-stained face, and then his expression changed from shock to something else, something darker. Something that made the temperature in the room spike about 40 degrees. Elena. His voice was deeper now, rougher, with an edge that definitely hadn't been there when they were kids. What the hell are you doing in my apartment? And that, my friends, is what we call an entrance. Girl runs from her wedding and lands in the one place that's about to change everything. The universe has a sense of humor. Not always a kind one, but definitely a sense of humor. Now let me tell you something about Dominic Castellano. The boy who'd left the neighborhood 15 years ago with his family in the middle of the night had grown into a man who wore danger like cologne. And Elena, standing there in her destroyed wedding dress, was just starting to remember exactly whose family the Castellanos had been. The kind of family that left in the middle of the night. The kind people whispered about. The kind that made even the local cops look the other way. Elena's voice came out strangled. I thought this was 7B. I thought this was Rachel's apartment. I have a key. She held up the key like evidence at a trial. The lock worked and I was running and I didn't look. You were running. Dom's eyes traveled down to the wedding dress, back up to her face. Those eyes missed nothing. They cataloged every tear track, every smudge of makeup, the way her hands were shaking. From your wedding. It wasn't a question. Men like Dom, men who'd grown into whatever he'd become, they didn't ask questions they already knew the answers to. It's not what it looks like, Elena said, which was possibly the stupidest thing she'd ever uttered. It was exactly what it looked like. Really? One dark eyebrow rose. Because it looks like you climbed out a church window in a wedding dress and broke into my apartment. So unless there's a really interesting alternative explanation. He let the sentence hang there, dripping with that edge of amusement that made her want to either cry or throw something at him. I didn't break in. I had a key. Wrong apartment. She was babbling now. Rachel Morrison, 7B, she's my best friend. She gave me a key for emergencies, and this is an emergency. And the elevator, and I wasn't paying attention to… Wait. Why did my key work on your door? Something flickered across Dom's face. He reached past her, close enough that she could smell his soap, something expensive and dark, and plucked the key from her trembling fingers. Examined it. His jaw tightened. Because, Elena, your friend lives in 7B of Building 423. This is Building 421. He handed the key back. The buildings are identical. The locks on the B units? Same manufacturer. Close enough serial numbers that sometimes. He shrugged. Keys crosswork. Of course that would happen today. Because her life wasn't already enough of a disaster. I should go. She turned toward the door, but Dom's voice stopped her. In a wedding dress, barefoot, looking like you've been crying for an hour? He crossed his arms over his chest, and Elena fought very hard not to notice how that made his biceps do interesting things. Where exactly are you planning to go? Literally anywhere that isn't here? Try again. He moved toward her and she backed up instinctively, her spine hitting the door. He stopped, hands raised slightly. Easy. I'm not going to hurt you, but you're not leaving either. Not until you tell me what happened. Why do you care? The words came out sharper than she intended. You left. 15 years ago, you and your whole family just vanished. No goodbye. No letter. Nothing. So forgive me if I'm not interested in sharing my life story with someone who couldn't even... My father made us leave. His voice cut through her anger like a knife. Middle of the night. Said it wasn't safe anymore. I was 11 years old, Elena. I didn't have a choice. Something in his expression softened, just for a moment. I looked for you. Years later, when I came back, you'd moved. The air between them was thicker than my Aunt Carol's gravy, and just as dangerous to your health. All that history, all those years of wondering, and here they were, her in a wedding dress, him in a towel. Life's timing is either perfect or terrible, and right now, Elena couldn't tell which. The wedding, Dom prompted, his voice gentler now. Tell me. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the way he was looking at her, like he actually saw her, not just the disaster she'd become. Maybe it was simply because she was so tired of carrying it all alone. But Elena told him. About Brett. About the control. The criticism. The way he'd slowly isolated her from everyone she cared about. The accidents that left bruises. The way he'd convinced her she was lucky anyone would want her. Dom's expression went very still, very cold. When she finished, he asked only one question. His last name? Why? Because I want to know the name of the man I'm going to kill. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather, like murder was just another item on his to-do list, somewhere between picking up dry cleaning and grabbing coffee. You can't. That's not... Elena stopped, looked at him, really looked at him. At the expensive apartment, the way he carried himself, the edge of violence that clung to him like a second skin. What did you become, Dom? His smile was sharp enough to cut. Someone who takes care of problems? And your ex-fiancé? He stepped closer, and Elena's breath caught. He just became a problem. Smart girl, stupid wedding, and an even stupider ex-fiancé who had no idea what was coming for him. Listen, I've seen some tension in my day, but watching Elena Morrison and Dominic Castellano stare at each other in that apartment, that was enough electricity to power a small city, or start a fire. Probably both. You can't kill him, Elena said, trying to sound firm. It came out more like a plea. Dom, that's insane. Is it? He walked to his bedroom, still in that towel, mind you. The man had zero self-consciousness, and returned moments later in black jeans and a white t-shirt that fit him like a prayer. He put his hands on you, left bruises, made you afraid. In my world, Elena, that has consequences. Your world. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the June heat. What exactly is your world, Dom? He studied her for a long moment. Behind those dark eyes, she could see him making calculations, weighing options. Finally, he said, My family runs things in this city. Business, security, problem solving. We have rules, and one of them is simple. You don't hurt women. You don't control them. You don't make them feel small. His voice dropped. And you definitely don't put bruises on someone I... He stopped himself. Someone I know. Someone I what? Elena's traitorous brain wanted to know, but she filed that away for later analysis. Right now, she had bigger problems, like the fact that her childhood friend had grown up to be exactly what she'd feared, what everyone had whispered about the Castellanos all those years ago. I'm not asking you to kill anyone, she said carefully. I'm asking you to. I don't know. Let me think. Let me figure out what to do next. Thinking is overrated. Dom pulled out his phone, typed something. Marco will handle the immediate situation. Your ex is probably losing his mind trying to find you. We'll make sure he looks in the wrong places. Marco? My second. At her confused look, he clarified. My right hand, the person who makes sure things get done. He pocketed the phone. You're safe here, Elena. No one knows you're here. No one will find you unless I want them to. That's not reassuring. That's kidnapping. It's protection. There's a difference. He moved to the kitchen, started making coffee like they were having a normal Tuesday afternoon chat, instead of discussing how to hide a runaway bride from her psychotic ex. When's the last time you ate? I don't. This morning? Yesterday? Time had become fuzzy around the edges. The wedding was supposed to be at 2. It was now. She checked the clock on his wall. 4:30. Brett would be rabid by now. His mother would be calling everyone they knew. The guests would be gossiping. Her own mother. Oh God, my mom. Elena's knees went weak. She grabbed the counter for support. She was at the church. She's probably having a heart attack. I have to call her. I have to... No. Dom's hand covered hers on the counter. Warm. Solid. You call her. Brett traces it. He's probably already got people monitoring her phone, your friends' phones, everyone. He's not that smart. Love, Dom caught himself. Elena? Men like him? When they lose control of something they think they own? They get creative. Trust me on this. His thumb traced a circle on her wrist, probably without him even realizing it. Give me 24 hours. Let Marco set up a secure line. Then you can call your mother, explain, make sure she knows you're safe. 24 hours. It seemed impossible. It seemed eternal. But looking at Dom's face, at the absolute certainty there, Elena found herself nodding. When did she start trusting him again? Somewhere between him not judging her for running and him offering to commit felonies on her behalf, probably. The coffee maker beeped. Dom poured 2 cups, handed her one, and then did something that made her heart stutter. He reached out and gently wiped a smudge of mascara from under her eye with his thumb. You still do that thing with your nose, he said softly. Scrunch it when you're worried. You remember that? I remember everything about you, Elena. The way he said it, rough, honest, a little bit broken, made her chest tight. I thought about you for years, wondered where you ended up, if you were happy, if you... He trailed off, shook his head. Doesn't matter now. It matters, she whispered. Dom, it matters. They stood there, coffee cooling in their hands, years of separation hanging between them like cobwebs waiting to be brushed away. And then his phone rang. He checked it, frowned. It's Marco. Stay here. He walked to the window, answered. Talk to me. Elena couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she watched Dom's expression change, saw his jaw tighten, saw his free hand curl into a fist. How many? A pause. And he's armed? Another pause. No, keep them there. I'm coming. He hung up, turned to Elena. His face was carefully neutral, which scared her more than anger would have. What happened? Your ex-fiancé is at your apartment. He's got 2 friends with him. They're tearing the place apart looking for clues about where you went. Dom grabbed a jacket from the closet. Marco's people are watching. Brett's getting violent, breaking things. My stuff is replaceable. Dom pulled on the jacket. Under it, she caught a glimpse of a shoulder holster. A gun. Of course he had a gun. You're staying here. Don't answer the door for anyone. Don't go near the windows. Don't call anyone. He moved toward the door. Where are you going? He looked back at her. And there, in his eyes, she saw the boy who used to walk her home from school. The one who'd beaten up Tommy Richards for pulling her hair. The one who'd always protected her. To have a conversation with your ex-fiancé, Dom said, about respect and consequences, and what happens when you put your hands on something that doesn't belong to you. The way he said, something that doesn't belong to you made it very clear he thought Elena belonged somewhere else, somewhere specific, somewhere that started with 2 and ended with him. Dom, don't do anything crazy. His smile was all teeth and shadows. Sweetheart, crazy left the building when you climbed through my door in a wedding dress. Now I'm just cleaning up the mess. And then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the quiet apartment. Elena stood there, still in her destroyed wedding dress, holding cold coffee, and realized something terrifying. She wasn't afraid. Not of Dom, not of what he might do. She was afraid for Brett, because Dominic Castellano had grown up into exactly the kind of man you didn't cross. And Brett had crossed the worst line possible. He'd hurt someone Dom cared about. And that was the kind of mistake you didn't walk away from. 30 minutes passed like 30 hours. Elena paced Dom's apartment, wedding dress rustling with every step, leaving a trail of fabric and anxiety in her wake. The coffee had gone cold. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Every sound from the hallway made her jump. She'd finally peeled off the dress, leaving it in a tragic heap on Dom's bathroom floor, and raided his closet for something, anything, to wear. His t-shirts were massive on her, hanging to her mid-thigh. She'd found a pair of gym shorts with a drawstring and cinched them tight. Now she looked like a child playing dress-up in her father's clothes. Except the man whose clothes she was wearing was definitely not paternal in any capacity. The apartment was immaculate. Expensive but not showy. Leather couch, sleek kitchen, framed photographs on the walls. She moved closer to examine them. A younger Dom with an older man, his father maybe? They had the same eyes. A photo of Dom with a group of men in suits, all of them looking like they'd walked off a movie set about dangerous people who wore expensive shoes. And one photo, older and faded, that made her breath catch. 2 kids, a chain-link fence, a girl with pigtails and a missing front tooth, a boy with skinned knees and a protective hand on her shoulder. He'd kept it. All these years, through whatever he'd become, he'd kept a photograph of them. The lock clicked. Elena spun, heart hammering. Dom walked in, and her relief was so sharp it hurt. He looked, fine, unharmed. Not even a hair out of place. But his knuckles were red, and there was a coldness in his eyes that made her stomach clench. Is he... She couldn't finish the sentence. Alive? Yes? Unharmed? Dom shrugged off his jacket. That's relative. He'll need ice, maybe a few teeth replaced. Definitely therapy. He moved to the kitchen, poured himself a drink. Whiskey, neat. Drank it in one shot. But he's breathing. You're welcome. I didn't ask you to... Beat him up? No, you didn't. You asked me not to kill him. I honored that request. He poured another shot. He put his hands on you, Elena, multiple times, made you afraid to leave. Controlled every aspect of your life. That required a response. What did you say to him? Not much. Actions speak louder than words. Dom's smile was sharp. I explained the new rules. If he comes near you, calls you, texts you, or even thinks too hard about you, he'll wake up in a hospital. Or he won't wake up at all. His choice. You can't just threaten people. I didn't threaten him. I made him a promise. Dom set down the glass. There's a difference. Threats are maybe. Promises are definitely. He moved toward her, and Elena's breath caught. He believed me. Trust me on that. They stood there close enough to touch, and Elena felt something shift in the air between them. 15 years. They'd been apart 15 years. But standing here, in his apartment, wearing his clothes, trusting him with her safety, it felt like no time had passed at all. Like they were still kids, and he was still the boy who'd walked her home every day. Except they weren't kids anymore. And the way he was looking at her? That was definitely not how he'd looked at her when they were 11 and 8. Thank you, she whispered, for protecting me, for not killing him, for... She gestured vaguely at the apartment, at herself, at the situation. All of this. Elena? Her name sounded different in his mouth, rougher, more intimate. I would do anything for you. I thought you knew that. We haven't seen each other in 15 years. Doesn't matter, some things don't change. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek. You were mine to protect then. You're mine to protect now. I'm not yours. Aren't you? The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and danger and something that felt a lot like truth. You came here. Out of all the places you could have run, you ended up at my door. Call it coincidence, call it fate. I call it the universe finally getting something right. This man, this dangerous, complicated, absolutely not boyfriend material man was looking at her like she was water, and he'd been dying of thirst. And Elena, fresh from almost marrying the wrong person, should have been terrified, should have been running, should have been doing anything except leaning into his touch and wondering what would happen if she just... His phone rang. The moment shattered. Dom stepped back, checked the screen, frowned. It's Marco. I have to take this. He answered. What now? Elena watched his expression change, saw concern flicker across his features. He turned away from her slightly, lowering his voice. When? How many? No, keep her here. I'll handle it. He hung up, and when he turned back to Elena, she knew. Just knew. Whatever Marco had called about, it was bad. What's wrong? Your ex-fiancé? Dom's voice was carefully controlled. He filed a missing persons report, said you were kidnapped, told the police he saw someone forcing you into a car. He moved to the window, checked the street below. He's playing victim, making himself the concerned fiancé. That's not... I left on my own. I ran. I know that. You know that. But the cops? Dom turned back to her. They've got a man in a tuxedo claiming his bride was abducted. They're taking it seriously, which means they'll be checking security cameras, interviewing witnesses, tracking cell phones. His jaw tightened. Did you have your phone on you when you left the church? Yes, but I turned it off. I didn't want Brett tracking... She stopped. Oh, God. He can track me anyway, can't he? If he's smart enough to use the right apps? Yes. Dom pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. Marco's sending someone to pick it up. Where is it? My purse. I left it in the... She gestured to the abandoned wedding dress in the bathroom. Dom retrieved it, found her phone, removed the SIM card and snapped it in half, dropped the pieces in his kitchen trash. That's done. But Elena, if the police think you were kidnapped, they'll be looking for you. They'll track the last known location of your phone. They'll check traffic cameras near the church. He met her eyes. They'll find footage of you running, of you entering this building. So we tell them the truth, that I left on my own, that I'm safe. And explain why you're in my apartment? His expression was grim. Elena, I'm not exactly unknown to the local police. If they find out you're here, they'll assume the worst. They'll think I took you. Held you. Coerced you. He moved closer. I can handle police attention. What I can't handle is you being caught in the crossfire of my reputation. Then what do we do? Dom was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, we disappear, just for a few days. Let Marco handle the police, handle your ex, handle the story. We go somewhere safe, somewhere off the grid until this blows over. Run away, again. Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's becoming a pattern. No. Dom's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Running away is leaving because you're afraid. This is running toward something, toward safety, toward time to figure out what you actually want. His voice dropped. Toward me, if that's what you choose. And there it was. The thing neither of them had said. The electricity that had been arcing between them since the moment she'd walked through his door. The history and the possibility and the absolutely terrible timing of it all. This is insane, she whispered. Probably. His smile was crooked, devastating. But Safe was marrying Brett. Safe was doing what everyone expected. How'd that work out for you? He had a point, a really good point. Safe had nearly destroyed her. Maybe it was time to try dangerous instead. Okay, she said. Okay, let's disappear. Dom's smile was triumph and relief and something darker, something that made her stomach flip. Pack light. We leave in 10 minutes. As he moved away to grab his own bag, Elena caught her reflection in the window, still wearing his clothes, still looking like a disaster. But for the first time in 2 years, she was smiling, really smiling. Because sometimes the wrong door leads you exactly where you need to be, even if where you need to be is running away with your childhood friend who grew up to be a very dangerous, very protective, very attractive problem solver. Life's funny that way. And by funny, I mean absolutely terrifying and completely exhilarating in equal measure. The safe house wasn't what Elena expected. She'd been imagining something from a movie. Concrete walls, flickering lights, maybe a suspicious stain or two. Instead, Dom drove them 2 hours north to a cabin that looked like it belonged in a luxury travel magazine. Wood beams, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a lake, a kitchen that would make a chef weep with joy. This is a safe house? Elena stood in the doorway, duffel bag in hand, staring. This is where I come when I need to think. Dom set down their bags, moved through the space, checking windows, doors, sightlines. Years of training evident in every movement. No one knows about this place except Marco. Not family, not business associates, just me. He looked at her. And now you. The weight of that trust settled over her like a blanket. He was letting her into his private space, his sanctuary, the place where the dangerous man put down his armor and just was. It's beautiful, she said softly. It's safe. He moved to the kitchen, started pulling things from the refrigerator. Marco had someone stock it before we left. You must be starving. She was. She'd been too nervous to eat that morning, too busy running for her life that afternoon. Now that the adrenaline was fading, hunger hit her like a truck. I could eat. Good. Dom's hands moved with practiced efficiency, chopping vegetables, heating oil. Because I make a mean pasta carbonara and you're going to sit down, eat, and tell me what you want to do next. Bossy. Efficient. He shot her a look over his shoulder. There's a difference. Elena sank onto a stool at the kitchen island, watching him cook. There was something intimate about it. Domestic. Strange, considering the man was probably armed even now, considering they were hiding from both the police and her psychotic ex-fiancé, considering they'd only reunited a few hours ago. But here, in this space, it felt right. Why did you come back? The question slipped out before she could stop it. To the city, I mean, after your family left. Dom was quiet for a long moment, his knife steady against the cutting board. Family business needed someone here. My father's getting older. My brother's too hot-headed to handle the diplomacy side of things. He scraped vegetables into the pan, the sizzle loud in the quiet kitchen. And maybe I wanted to see if you were still around. Her heart did a stupid little flip. You came back for me? I came back for a lot of reasons. You were one of them. He looked at her, and God, those eyes. I tried to find you, Elena, 5 years ago when I first came back. But you'd moved. Your mother had remarried, different last name. You weren't on social media. It was like you'd disappeared. I did disappear. Brett didn't like me having social media. Said it was a distraction. Said other men would look at my pictures. She twisted her hands together. By the end, I wasn't allowed to have anything that was just mine. Dom's knuckles went white around the knife handle. He set it down carefully, deliberately. I should have killed him. Dom, I know. I know you asked me not to. He turned back to the stove, stirred the pasta. But men like that, they don't change. They just find new victims. He plated the food, set it in front of her. Eat. Then we'll figure out the next move. The pasta was incredible. Creamy, perfectly seasoned, the kind of meal that makes you close your eyes and just savor. Elena hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first bite. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that only exists between people who've known each other long enough to not need constant conversation. I missed you, she said finally, setting down her fork. After you left, I used to wait by the fence, thinking maybe you'd come back. That it was all a mistake. That you'd show up and everything would go back to normal. I'm sorry. The words were simple, but the emotion behind them wasn't. I wanted to stay, wanted to tell you goodbye. But my father... He shook his head. In my world, Elena, you do what the family needs, even when it breaks your heart. And what does your heart need now? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Dom stood, moved around the island to where she sat. He turned her stool to face him, bracketed her with his arms, hands on either side of her hips. Close. So close she could feel his heat, smell his cologne, see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. You, he said simply. It needs you. It's always needed you. We barely know each other anymore, don't we? His hand came up, cupped her face. I know you scrunch your nose when you're worried. I know you kick off your shoes the second you get home. I know you hum when you're cooking and you're a disaster at keeping plants alive and you cry at commercials with dogs in them. His thumb traced her lower lip. I know you, Elena Morrison. Time doesn't change that. Dom. She wasn't sure if it was a protest or a plea. Tell me you don't feel this. His forehead touched hers. Tell me I'm imagining the way you look at me. Tell me to back off and I will. But if there's even a chance, if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, then say so. Because I've waited 15 years to have you this close again. And sweetheart, my patience is hanging by a thread. Elena's breath came short. Her heart hammered. Every rational thought in her head screamed that this was too fast, too soon, too complicated. She'd literally run from a wedding this morning. She should not be considering kissing another man, especially not this man, who was dangerous and complicated and absolutely not good for her long-term health and sanity. But rational had never gotten her anywhere good. Rational had almost gotten her married to Brett. Rational had nearly destroyed her. Maybe it was time to try irrational instead. I feel it, she whispered. God help me, I feel it. Dom's smile was pure triumph. God's got nothing to do with this, Elena. This is all us. And then he kissed her. Honey, I've seen some kisses in my day. Awkward first kisses, sloppy drunk kisses, kisses that should have stayed in the imagination. This was not any of those. This was the kind of kiss that rewrites your entire understanding of the word. Dom kissed her like she was air and he'd been suffocating. Like she was a question he'd been asking his entire life, and finally found the answer. His hands tangled in her hair. Her fingers gripped his shirt. The world narrowed to just this. His mouth on hers, his body pressed against her. 15 years of wanting compressed into one perfect, terrible, absolutely inevitable moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dom rested his forehead against hers. "I'm not sorry." "You should be. This is a terrible idea." "The best ones usually are." He pulled back slightly, studied her face. "But if this is too much too fast, if you need space to process everything that's happened today, say so. I'll back off. I'll wait. I'm very good at waiting." Elena laughed, the sound shaky. "You just said your patience was hanging by a thread." "It is. But for you, I'd wait another 15 years if that's what you needed." And wasn't that just like him? Dangerous and protective and impossible all at once. Elena looked at this man, this complicated, lethal, surprisingly gentle man, and made a decision. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was reckless. Maybe tomorrow she'd regret it. But right now, in this moment, it felt like the first truly honest choice she'd made in years. "I don't want you to wait," she said. "I don't want to be careful or rational or smart about this. I want—" She pulled him closer. "I want you." Dom's expression went dark with promise. "Careful, Elena. You say things like that and I might take you seriously." "Good." She smiled against his mouth. "Because I am being serious. For the first time in 2 years, I'm being completely, utterly serious." "Then God help us both," Dom murmured, and kissed her again. And there, in that cabin by the lake, with the sun setting outside and danger waiting in the wings, Elena Morrison finally stopped running. Not because she'd reached safety, but because she'd found something worth standing still for. Even if that something was absolutely, definitely going to complicate her life in ways she couldn't even imagine yet. Morning came too early and not early enough. Elena woke wrapped in sheets that smelled like Dom, that dark, expensive scent that made her stomach flip, in a bed that definitely wasn't hers, in a cabin that felt more like home than anywhere she'd been in years. They'd talked for hours last night. After the kissing, and there had been more kissing, enough to leave her lips swollen and her heart racing, they'd sat on the couch and talked, really talked, about the years apart, the people they'd become, the choices that had led them both to this moment. Dom had told her about taking over parts of the family business, about the careful balance between legitimate operations and the shadowy edges that kept everything running. She'd told him about art school, about meeting Brett, about the slow erosion of herself until she'd barely recognized her own reflection. "I used to paint," she'd said at some point, curled against his side. "Before Brett, I had this whole plan. Finish school, open a gallery, maybe teach." She'd laughed bitterly. "Brett said art was a hobby, not a career. Said I needed to be realistic." Dom's arm had tightened around her. "When this is over, when you're safe and settled, you paint. I don't care if it takes you years to remember how. You paint, Elena. Promise me." She'd promised. And then they'd fallen asleep there on the couch, tangled together, and Elena had slept better than she had in months. Now, in the early morning light, she padded to the kitchen and found Dom already up, phone to his ear, expression serious. He saw her, smiled slightly, held up one finger. "Wait. Understand what I'm saying, Marco. No mistakes." A pause. "Because if anything happens to her, I will personally—" He stopped, listened. "Good. Keep me updated." He hung up, turned to Elena. "Morning. Is everything okay?" "Depends on your definition of okay." He poured her coffee, black, 2 sugars, he'd remembered, and handed it over. "Police are backing off. Your ex-fiancé's story wasn't adding up. Turns out several people saw you climb out that bathroom window on your own. No mysterious car, no kidnappers, just a bride making a run for it. So I'm not wanted? By the police? No? By your ex?" Dom's expression hardened. "That's a different story. Marco's people say he's been calling everyone you know, demanding information, getting aggressive. He tried to file a restraining order against me." "Against you? But he doesn't even know you have me." "He's grasping at straws, making accusations, hoping something sticks." Dom set down his coffee. "Elena, this man isn't going to let you go easily. Men like him, They see women as possessions. He spent 2 years controlling you, and now you've slipped through his fingers. That makes you a problem he's desperate to solve. The coffee suddenly tasted bitter. So what do? You let me handle it. At her look, he added, legally. No violence unless absolutely necessary. Marco's got lawyers drafting a restraining order against Brett. We've got documentation of the bruises, witness statements from your neighbors about arguments they overheard. We're building a case that protects you and makes it very clear that if he comes near you again, there will be consequences. And if he doesn't care about consequences, then I stop being legal about it. Dom's voice was flat, final. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Elena set down her coffee, wrapped her arms around herself. I don't want you to have to do this, to risk anything for me. We just found each other again, and already I'm dragging you into my mess. Elena. He moved to her, hands on her shoulders. Look at me. She did. This isn't your mess. This is a man who hurt you, controlled you, made you feel small. Taking care of him isn't a risk. It's a privilege. His hands slid up to cup her face. You're not a burden. You're not a problem. You're... He stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. You're everything. You always were. Her eyes burned. When was the last time someone had called her everything? Had looked at her like she mattered, like she was worth protecting, worth fighting for. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. How to trust someone again. How to believe it's real. Then let me show you. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. Every day. For as long as it takes. Let me show you what it's like when someone actually loves... He stopped himself again, but the word hung there between them anyway. Love. He'd almost said love. The phone on the counter buzzed. Dom glanced at it, frowned. It's Marco. He only calls this number for emergencies. He answered. What's wrong? Elena watched his expression change. Watched him go very still in that way that meant violence was close to the surface. When? A pause. How the hell did he... Another pause. No, absolutely not. She stays here. He looked at Elena, and she saw something she'd never seen in his eyes before. Fear. I'll be there in an hour. Don't let him leave. He hung up. Dom? What happened? Your ex-fiancé. Dom's voice was carefully controlled. He found my name, did some research, figured out who I am, what I do, and now he's at my office, demanding to speak with me, threatening to go to the police, to the media, telling anyone who'll listen that I kidnapped his fiancée. He's bluffing. He has to be. Maybe. But if he goes public with this story, even if it's not true, it creates problems. For me, for my family, for our business operations. Dom moved to the window, checked the tree line. Old habits. Marco can handle it, can make him understand that this particular path leads nowhere good, but... He turned back to her. Brett's asking to see you. Says he won't back down until he knows you're safe and unharmed. He wants to see me. Elena's stomach dropped. Dom, I can't... If I see him, if he gets me alone... He won't. I won't let him within 10 feet of you. Dom's jaw was set. But Elena, if you're willing, if you can face him, tell him yourself that you left of your own free will, that you want nothing to do with him. It might end this. Might make him accept that it's over. Or it might make him angrier. That's a possibility too. Dom crossed to her, took her hand. I won't force you into this. If you say no, I'll handle it another way. But if you think you can do it, if you're strong enough to look him in the eye and take that power back, I'll be right there beside you. Every second. Elena thought about the last 2 years. About shrinking herself smaller and smaller to fit Brett's idea of what she should be. About apologizing for existing, for breathing wrong, for thinking her own thoughts. About that final moment in the church bathroom when she'd looked in the mirror and decided enough was enough. She'd run once. Maybe it was time to stop running. I'll do it, she said. I'll tell him it's over. But Dom, you have to promise me you won't kill him. No matter what he says, no matter how angry you get. Promise me. Dom's expression was torn. Elena, promise me. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I promise I won't kill him unless he puts his hands on you. That's the best I can do. It would have to be enough, because Elena Morrison was done being afraid. Done letting Brett Hansen control her narrative. It was time to write her own ending. Even if that ending meant walking back into the lion's den. At least this time, She'd have a very dangerous, very protective man at her side. And sometimes that makes all the difference. "Let's go," she said, "before I change my mind." Dom smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who'd been waiting for an excuse. "This is going to be interesting." "Interesting," Elena laughed shakily. "That's one word for it. Honey, I could think of several other words, none of them appropriate for polite company. But as I watched these two head toward what was either going to be closure or catastrophe, I had to admire Elena's courage. Takes guts to face your demons. Takes even more guts to do it when your demon is 6'2" of entitled rage and your backup plan is a mobster who's barely keeping his homicidal tendencies in check. Buckle up, sweethearts. This is where things get messy." The drive back to the city felt like driving toward a cliff. Elena sat in Dom's car, hands twisted in her lap, watching the trees blur past. He'd given her one of his guns. A small piece, he'd called it, like it was jewelry instead of a lethal weapon. "Just in case," he'd said. "You won't need it, but I'll feel better knowing you have it." Now it sat heavy in her purse, a cold reminder that this wasn't a romantic drama. This was real life, with real consequences, and she was about to face a man who'd spent 2 years teaching her to be afraid. "You don't have to do this," Dom said for the third time. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Say the word and we turn around." "I have to." Elena's voice was steadier than she felt. "If I don't face him now, I'll spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder." Dom's office was in a building that screamed money and power. Marble floors, security that looked like they could bench press cars, an elevator that probably cost more than Elena's entire education. She felt small in borrowed clothes, her hair still a mess from yesterday's chaos. But Dom's hand at the small of her back was steady, grounding. "Remember," he murmured as they approached the conference room where Brett waited. "You're in control here, not him. You say when it's over. You say when we leave." Marco stood outside the door, arms crossed, expression carved from granite. "He's been pacing for 20 minutes, getting agitated. 2 of our guys are inside, just in case." "Good." Dom looked at Elena. "Ready?" "No, absolutely not." But she nodded anyway, and he opened the door. Brett looked like hell. His tuxedo from yesterday was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes wild with something between rage and desperation. When he saw Elena, his entire face transformed. Relief, anger, possessiveness. All of it crashed together into an expression that made her stomach turn. "Elena, thank God." He moved toward her, but Dom stepped between them like a wall. Brett's eyes flicked to him, narrowed. You're the one who took her. I should have you arrested for kidnapping." "She came to me," Dom said, his voice dangerously soft. "Of her own free will. After running from you." "That's not—" "Elena, baby, tell him. Tell him this is all a misunderstanding. You were confused, overwhelmed by the wedding. I understand. I forgive you." Brett's voice took on that wheedling tone she knew so well. The one that came before the demands. "Let's go home. We'll reschedule the wedding, make it smaller if that's what you want." "No." The word came out stronger than Elena expected. "Brett, I'm not going home with you. I'm not rescheduling anything. It's over." His face darkened. "Over? Elena, we've been together for 2 years. We have a life planned, a future. You can't just throw that away because of some wedding day jitters." It wasn't jitters, it was clarity. Elena stepped forward, forcing herself to look him in the eyes. "You hurt me, Brett. Physically, emotionally. You controlled every aspect of my life, isolated me from my friends, my family, made me feel like I was crazy for having my own thoughts." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. "I deserve better than that. I deserve better than you." "Better?" Brett's laugh was ugly. "Better like him?" He jerked his chin toward Dom. "You think running to some criminal is better? Elena, he's using you. Can't you see that? He's probably got a dozen girls stashed away." "Careful." Dom's voice cut like a blade. "Very careful how you finish that sentence." Brett ignored him, focused entirely on Elena. "Baby, I know I made mistakes. I know I got angry sometimes, but that was because I love you, because I couldn't stand the thought of losing you. We can fix this. We can go to therapy, work through it." "I don't want to fix it." Elena's voice rose. "Brett, you left bruises on me. You made me afraid to breathe wrong. That's not love. That's control. That's abuse. Don't use that word. Brett's face flushed. I never abused you. I was trying to protect you, to make you better. To make me smaller, Elena interrupted. To make me fit into your idea of what I should be. Well, I'm done shrinking. She pulled off the engagement ring she'd somehow still been wearing. Muscle memory, she supposed, and set it on the conference table. This is over. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't come looking for me. If you do, there will be legal consequences. Legal consequences? Brett's laugh was bitter. You think I'm afraid of lawyers? Elena, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. No. She met his eyes steadily. Saying yes to you is my mistake. This is me fixing it. For a second, Elena thought Brett might actually accept it. Might walk away with whatever dignity he had left. But then she saw his expression change, saw the moment reason left, and rage took over. He lunged toward her, hand outstretched. Whether to grab her or hurt her, she'd never know. Because Dom moved like lightning. One moment he was beside her. The next he had Brett's arm twisted behind his back, face pressed against the conference table. Big mistake, Dom said, his voice arctic. Huge mistake. Get off me! Brett struggled, but Dom might as well have been made of iron. This is assault. I'll have you arrested. You'll do nothing. Marco appeared at Dom's side with a tablet. See, while you were waiting, we did some research. Interesting guy, Brett Hansen. 3 previous girlfriends, all with similar stories. Controlling behavior, emotional abuse, one with a restraining order against you that mysteriously disappeared. He turned the tablet toward Brett's face. Want to guess what happens if all of this goes public? Brett went very still. Elena stared at the screen, at the police reports, the court documents, the pattern of behavior that proved she wasn't crazy. Wasn't imagining it. She wasn't his first victim. You've got a choice, Dom said, still holding Brett immobile. Option 1, you walk away. You don't contact Elena, don't harass her, don't even think about her. You sign whatever legal documents our lawyers draft, and you disappear from her life completely. He leaned in closer. Option 2, all of this goes public. Your job, your reputation, your freedom, all of it gone. And that's if you're lucky enough that I let you walk out of here intact. This is blackmail. This is consequences. Dom released him, stepped back. Brett stumbled, caught himself on the table, straightening his jacket with shaking hands. Choose wisely. Brett looked at Elena, and for just a moment, she saw something almost like remorse in his eyes. Almost. But then it hardened back into that familiar resentment. You'll regret this, he said quietly. When he gets bored of you, when he throws you away like trash, you'll remember that I was willing to marry you. That I was willing to give you everything. Everything except freedom, Elena said. Everything except respect. Everything except the chance to be myself. She straightened her shoulders. I'll take my chances. Brett looked between her and Dom, seemed to realize he'd lost and headed for the door. Marco and 2 security guards followed him out. The room felt 10 degrees warmer with him gone, like someone had opened a window and let fresh air in. Elena's legs gave out. She sank into a chair, hands shaking so hard she had to clench them into fists. I did it, she whispered. Oh my God, I actually did it. Dom knelt in front of her, hands covering hers. You were incredible, brave, strong, everything he tried to make you think you weren't. He pressed a kiss to her knuckles. I'm so proud of you. He won't actually stay away, will he? She looked up at Dom. Men like that. They don't just give up. Marco will make sure he understands the stakes. But Dom's expression was serious. You're right to be cautious. For the next few weeks, you'll have security. People watching, making sure he keeps his distance. Security, like bodyguards. The reality of her new normal settled over her. This is insane. My life is insane. Welcome to my world. Dom smiled slightly. It's complicated and dangerous and nothing like what you planned. But Elena, he cupped her face. I meant what I said. Every word. You're not alone in this. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Together. When was the last time anyone had offered her that? Not demanded her compliance, not controlled her choices, but actually partnered with her. Stood beside her instead of over her. Together. she repeated. I like the sound of that. They stayed there for a long moment, his hands warm on her face, her heart finally starting to slow from its panicked gallop. Then Marco knocked on the doorframe. He's gone. Sign the preliminary documents. Our lawyers will have the full restraining order ready by tomorrow. Good. Dom stood, pulling Elena up with him. Thank you, Marco. Just doing my job, boss. Marco's expression softened slightly as he looked at Elena. You did good today. Takes guts to face someone who hurt you. Elena managed a shaky smile. Thanks, I think. As they left the building, stepping back into the sunshine, Elena felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there. She wasn't naive enough to think it would disappear overnight, but underneath it was something new, something fragile but growing stronger. Hope. For the first time in 2 years, she had hope. Where to now? She asked as Dom opened the car door for her. Anywhere you want. He smiled. Your life, Elena. Your choice. Your choice. 2 words that held an entire universe of possibility, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, Elena Morrison was free to choose. 3 weeks later, Elena stood in the spare bedroom of Dom's apartment. Her apartment now, too, though she was still getting used to that. Surrounded by canvases and paint supplies. Dom had transformed the space into a studio while she'd been sleeping, complete with perfect lighting and more art supplies than she could use in a year. You promised you'd paint, he'd said when she'd found it that morning. I'm just helping you keep that promise. Now, brush in hand, she faced a blank canvas and felt that familiar rush of terror and excitement. How long had it been? 2 years? 3? Brett had been so convinced art was a waste of time that she'd eventually believed him. Packed away her supplies, stopped seeing the world in colors and compositions, stopped being herself. Her phone buzzed. Rachel's name lit up the screen. She'd finally reconnected with her best friend last week, explained everything, endured the righteous anger and fierce hugs. Now they texted daily, slowly rebuilding what Brett had torn down. Rachel. Lunch tomorrow? I need to meet this mysterious man who swept you off your feet. Elena. He didn't sweep me off my feet. I literally broke into his apartment in a wedding dress. Rachel. Even better. Bring him. I need to give him the best friend interrogation. Elena smiled, typed back a confirmation, and set down the phone. Dom had been patient about meeting her friends, her family, understanding she needed to rebuild those connections on her own timeline. But it was time. Time to stop hiding. Time to start living. She picked up the brush again, dipped it in blue, the color of Dom's eyes when he laughed, when he looked at her like she was something precious. The canvas began to fill with shapes, colors, emotions she'd kept locked away for too long. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't polished, but it was real, and it was hers, and that was enough. Hours passed like minutes. When Dom came home, and when had she started thinking of it as home? He found her covered in paint, surrounded by canvases in various stages of completion, grinning like an idiot. You painted, he said, and the pride in his voice made her chest tight. I painted, she confirmed. I remembered how much I loved it, how good it feels, how right. She gestured at the mess. It's not good yet, but it's perfect. Dom moved closer, studied the canvases. You've got talent, Elena. Real talent. Have you thought about what you want to do with it? Actually, she wiped her hands on a rag. I've been thinking about opening that gallery, like I always planned, before. She stopped, shook her head. Before doesn't matter. What matters is now. And now I want to try. Want to see if I can make it work. Then you will. Dom pulled her close, mindless of the paint staining his expensive shirt. Whatever you need, space, funding, connections, it's yours. I don't want your money, Dom. It's not charity, it's investment. He kissed her forehead. I believe in you. Let me help you believe in yourself. Later, as they sat on the couch with takeout, Elena's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Silence. Heavy breathing. Then Brett's voice slurred slightly. Drunk. You ruined everything. Elena's blood turned to ice. Dom's head snapped up, seeing her expression, immediately on alert. Brett? She said, and Dom was already moving, pulling out his phone, texting rapid fire to someone. You ruined everything, Brett repeated. My job found out about the police reports, about the other girls. They fired me, Elena. Said I was a liability. My reputation is destroyed. My life is over. And it's all your fault. No. Elena's voice was steadier than her hands. It's not my fault you hurt me. It's not my fault you hurt those other women. That's on you, Brett. Those are your choices, your consequences. Consequences? His laugh was bitter, ugly. You want to talk about consequences? You think you're safe because you've got your criminal boyfriend? You think I can't get to you? Dom lunged for the phone, but Elena held up a hand. Stopped him. She needed to do this. If you come near me, Brett, you'll be arrested. You signed documents. There's a restraining order. Paper doesn't stop bullets, sweetheart. The menace in his voice was clear now, undeniable. You took everything from me. Seems only fair I return the favor. The line went dead. Elena sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear, Brett's threat echoing in her head. Dom took the phone gently, set it down, pulled her into his arms. He's not going to touch you, he said fiercely. I promise you, Elena, he's not going to get within a mile of you. He sounded... Her voice cracked. Dom, he sounded serious, like he's past caring about consequences. Then we make him care. Dom's expression was cold fury. Marco's already tracking the call. We'll find him, handle this, and Brett Hansen will never threaten you again. He cupped her face, forcing her to look at him. Trust me, please. She did. God help her, she did. Okay. What do we do? What they did was turn Dom's apartment into a fortress. Security cameras, extra locks, 2 guards stationed in the lobby. Marco traced Brett's call to a bar across town, sent people to watch him. The police were notified about the threat, the restraining order violation documented. Everything legal, everything by the book. But Elena could see it in Dom's eyes. The calculation. The cold promise that if Brett crossed the line, if he so much as looked at her wrong, Dom would handle it his way. And his way didn't involve courts or lawyers. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in Dom's arms, listening to his steady heartbeat, trying to convince herself everything would be okay. But Brett's words kept echoing. Paper doesn't stop bullets. I won't let him hurt you, Dom murmured into her hair. I'd die first. That's not comforting. It's the truth. He pulled back, looked at her. Elena, you need to know, if it comes down to him or me, if he forces my hand, I won't hesitate. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Even if it means... She couldn't say it. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. Even then. She should have been horrified, should have pulled away, questioned what kind of man she'd fallen for. But all Elena felt was a terrible relief, because Brett had threatened her, had made it clear he wasn't done. And if it came down to it, if he pushed too far, she needed someone who wouldn't hesitate to protect her, even if that protection came with a price. 2 days later, Brett made his move. He showed up at Rachel's apartment. Somehow he'd figured out Elena would be there for lunch, with flowers and apologies, and that dangerous light in his eyes that said violence wasn't far behind. Rachel, bless her, didn't let him pass the door. Called the police immediately. Called Dom 30 seconds later. By the time Elena arrived, Dom's security had been tailing her, called him the moment Brett appeared. There were 3 cop cars and enough witnesses to make Brett's violation undeniable. He was arrested on the spot, hauled away while screaming about how Elena had ruined his life, how she'd pay for this, how she'd be sorry. He's done, the detective told Elena as she gave her statement. Between the restraining order violation, the threats, and the evidence we've gathered about his previous behavior, he's looking at serious jail time. Minimum 2 years, probably more. 2 years. Elena should have felt relief, should have felt safe. Instead, she just felt tired. Tired of looking over her shoulder, tired of being afraid, tired of letting Brett Hansen take up space in her head. It's over, Dom said as they drove home. Really over this time. Is it? Elna looked out the window. He'll get out eventually. He'll still blame me, still think I owe him something. By the time he gets out, you'll be so far beyond him he won't recognize you. Dom took her hand. You'll have your gallery, your art, a life you built yourself. And if he's stupid enough to come looking for you, then... His jaw tightened. I'll be waiting. Elena squeezed his hand. Dangerous, protective, impossible Dom. What are we doing? She asked softly. You and me. What is this? He was quiet for a moment. Then, it's whatever you want it to be. If you want to take it slow, rebuild yourself first. I'll wait. If you want to see where this goes, he glanced at her. I'm all in, Elena. Have been since you walked through my door in that ridiculous wedding dress. I love that dress, she protested weakly. You looked like a cream puff in a fight with a lawnmower. She laughed despite everything, despite the fear and the exhaustion and the weight of the day. Dom made her laugh, made her feel safe, made her feel like herself again. I want to see where this goes, she said. Slow, maybe, careful, but together. If you're willing to put up with all my baggage. Elena. He pulled the car over, turned to face her fully. Your baggage is nothing compared to mine. I'm a criminal. I run an organization that operates in moral gray areas at best. My enemies could become your enemies. My life is complicated and dangerous and absolutely nothing like the safe, normal existence you probably dreamed of. Safe and normal almost got me married to Brett. She cupped his face. I'll take complicated and dangerous with you over safe and miserable with anyone else. You sure about that? No. She smiled. But I'm sure about you. About us. About the fact that you make me feel more like myself than I have in years. She kissed him, soft and sweet. So yes, Dominic Castellano, I'm all in too. His smile was worth every moment of fear, every second of doubt. Then let's go home. Home. Elena liked the sound of that. 6 months later, Elena stood in her gallery, her actual, real gallery, surrounded by her paintings and other local artists' work, watching people mill around with wine glasses and appreciative murmurs. The opening night had exceeded every expectation. Sales were good. Press coverage was excellent. And standing in the corner, trying to look casual while obviously keeping an eye on every person who got too close to her, was Dom. Stop lurking, she called across the room. You're making the guests nervous. I'm not lurking, I'm observing. He crossed to her, pressed a kiss to her temple. And admiring my incredibly talented girlfriend who somehow made this happen in 6 months. Girlfriend. She'd never get tired of hearing that word in his voice. I had help. You had determination. He gestured at the walls. This is all you, Elena. Your vision, your art, your dream. I just wrote some checks. Very large checks. The best investment I've ever made. His arm slipped around her waist. I'm proud of you, in case I haven't said that recently. You've said it. She leaned into him. Multiple times, daily, sometimes hourly. Rachel appeared with 2 glasses of champagne, grinning. This is amazing, Elena. Seriously, I knew you were talented, but this... She waved at the crowd. This is next level. You're going to be huge. Let's start with not failing first, Elena said, but she was smiling. She'd learned to accept compliments in the past months, learned to believe in herself again. Dom had helped with that. So had therapy, something she'd resisted at first, but now couldn't imagine living without. Brett's trial had been 3 months ago. He'd gotten 4 years, with possibility of parole in 2. Elena had given her victim statement, looking him in the eye and refusing to be afraid. Dom had been there every second, a solid presence at her back. She'd walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than air. Now, standing in her gallery, surrounded by friends and art and possibility, Elena Morrison felt something she hadn't felt in years. Happy. Genuinely, uncomplicated happy. I need to ask you something, Dom said, as Rachel drifted away to schmooze with potential buyers. His voice was serious enough to make Elena's heart skip. Okay? He pulled a small box from his pocket. Not a ring, too big for that. He opened it to reveal a key. My apartment is great, but it's mine. I want to find something that's ours, together. If you're ready for that. Elena stared at the key, symbolic, she realized, since they didn't have a place yet. You want to live together? Officially? I want a lot of things. His smile was crooked. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I want to build a life together. Art galleries and family dinners and arguments about whose turn it is to do dishes. He cupped her face. I want everything, Elena. With you. Her eyes burned. Happy tears this time. That's very forward of you. I'm a forward guy. He kissed her softly. So what do you say? Want to take the next step with a complicated, dangerous criminal who's absolutely crazy about you? Yes. No hesitation, no doubt. Yes to all of it. The apartment, the life, the arguments about dishes, all of it. His grin was brilliant, devastating. The same grin that had made her 8-year-old heart flutter and made her 23-year-old heart soar. Good, because I already put a deposit on a place. 2 bedrooms, 1 for us, 1 for your studio. Walking distance to your gallery. And before you say anything about me being presumptuous, I was going to say thank you. She kissed him. For believing in me, for protecting me, for giving me space to become myself again. You did that part yourself. He shrugged. I loved you the whole time. That part was easy. Loved. Present tense, not past, not future, but right now. Elena's heart felt too big for her chest. I love you too, she whispered. In case that wasn't obvious. It was. His smile softened, but I like hearing it anyway. Around them, the gallery hummed with life and possibility. Outside, the city stretched endless and complicated. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. It always did. But tonight, Elena Morrison stood in a room filled with her art, beside a man who'd helped her remember who she was, and felt nothing but gratitude. She'd run from a wedding in a panic. She'd broken into the wrong apartment. She'd faced her demons and built something new from the ashes of her old life. And somehow, impossibly, she'd found love in the most unexpected place. Life's funny that way. You think you know where you're headed, think you've got it all planned out, then the universe laughs and sends you through the wrong door. And sometimes, just sometimes, that wrong door leads you exactly where you need to be. Even if where you need to be involves a mobster with protective tendencies, a gallery full of dreams, and a future that looks nothing like what you'd imagined. Sometimes different is better. Sometimes wrong is right. And sometimes the best love stories start with a runaway bride and a man in a towel.